About 12 million people are set to lose their unemployment benefits at the end of the year, while cases of COVID-19 surge and businesses fight to stay open and profitable. The pressure is on the government to step in. Paul Romer is with us now. He's an economics professor at NYU and co-recipient of the 2018 Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences. So you're our man, because, boy, we're in quite a mess because of the pandemic. President-elect Biden is assembling his economic team. Can you break down the main challenges the U.S. economy and, for that matter, the global economy will be facing now that we are working to get the coronavirus under control?
Well, you're absolutely right that the virus is the #1 priority from both the perspective of health and protecting lives, but also from making sure that the economy can recover. Fortunately, the president-elect has collected around him a number of people who have experience dealing with previous pandemics, such as Ebola, and this includes even his chief of staff. So I expect that they will be much more focused and much more effective in managing the pandemic.
So what will happen to the U.S. economy if cases of COVID-19 continue to increase the way they have over the past several months?
I think it's a one-for-one change. If you've got a higher level of prevalence, more deaths, we're going to have less economic activity. Partly because governments are going to feel compelled to impose more restrictions, partly because people are going to be more afraid. So the only way to get the economy to recover is to stop the spread of the virus.
So sources tell CBS News that former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen will replace Steve Mnuchin as Treasury Secretary. What are your thoughts on this pick? And I also want to get a sense of just what you think the Federal Reserve can actually do moving forward. Low interest rates are great for some, but is there anything left in the Federal Reserve's toolbox?
Yeah. So first, I've known Janet for more than 2 decades, and I couldn't be more pleased and confident that she's the right person for the job at Treasury. Now, in terms of what the Fed can do, frankly, there's relatively little the Fed can do right now because it doesn't control the levers that the government needs to use to contain the pandemic. The Fed can stand ready to protect us against a financial panic, but we can't get a recovery until we start testing to figure out who's sick and then who's infected, and then just isolate the people who are infected. And at this point, it looks like you only need to isolate those people for a week. So it's really a pretty straightforward matter to get this pandemic under control if we just test and isolate.
So, Professor, let's talk about relief for Americans. Secretary Mnuchin said this month that he didn't want to extend several pandemic emergency loan programs, which are set to expire at the end of the year. The Federal Reserve wants them to stay in place. So just this morning, the Secretary and the Federal Reserve agreed to extend 4 of these programs that benefit businesses. Can you explain what this move will do for businesses who are relying on that help and why Secretary Mnuchin didn't want to extend any of these programs?
Well, let me just say something positive about Janet Yellen, which is that one of the things you expect from someone in the position of Secretary of the Treasury is that they have a moral compass, which forces them to think about the well-being of all Americans and to not be captured by narrow partisan concerns. So let's just leave it at that.
So in regards to some of these emergency loan programs, they were put in place to help small businesses and local governments survive the pandemic, but some of them haven't been touched. The municipal lending program has only made 1 loan. The Main Street program, which was designed to give out up to $600 billion in loans, has only lent out $4 billion to 400 companies. There have been problems with some of these programs, their outreach to minority business owners or people who don't have a long-term relationship with financial institutions like banks. What do you think has happened here? Why have so many not been able to tap into some of these programs?
Well, I think this reflects partly just the level of disorganization and incompetence in the Trump administration. But remember that these kinds of programs are important not just for their use right now, but they're important for building confidence in the sense that if we know they're there and can quickly be used, that helps everyone be confident that we won't face something like a financial panic. So I wouldn't judge the success of the new administration by looking to see how quickly they can push loans out the door. As I said and keep saying, the first thing I would judge them by is their success in scaling up testing and isolating people. But the Fed, the Treasury, everybody has to be ready to handle shocks that could arise along the way.
All right, Paul Romer, thank you so much. So great to have you. We appreciate the insight.
Glad to be here.